thank God. Come, we have Tinonia Simona, if I've pronounced correctly. She is one of our speakers in person. Tinonia, come please, take your chair. So I'll have another quick introduction. Please come, Titishka Vashist. Please take your chair. I think we will not waste another 1 minute because people will keep joining and sitting here. But since time is very strict for all of us, we'll start. So again, good morning to all of you. And so this is a session that is very aligned with the APRIGF theme, and which is on digital environmental sustainability. And in the previous session also, you heard speakers talking about environment and technology, the essential relationship between the two. And so this session we are organizing is based on, of course, a small context is that in India, we have been working in the space of digital circular economy, in the space of digital devices, how circular economy is very important in an increasing digital consumerist society for all of us, and the increase and the consumption is increasing and increasing, the demand is increasing for digital needs. So in that context, we're organizing this session. And so we have total five speakers we have. Tinonia Simona, you can see on the screen, she represents Tuvalu, and she is the CEO of Tuvalu Telecommunication Corporation, and she's also in various committees like UN multi-stakeholder group. And we have Shawna Finnegan, and of course she is she has been working for long years in APC, and she works in the digital environmental justice space. We have Titiska Vashist, she's from India, and her organization is also working in the space of technology and society, but more towards the citizen engagement and education and training and so on and so forth. And we have Osama, he's a founder and director of Digital Empowerment Foundation. It's a 20 years old organization, more than 20 years now, 21st year running, pan-India, and also works in South Asia and in multiple sectors domains. And I think he's very familiar face in the digital space, digital society technology space. And we have, of course, Rajneesh. He was in the previous session, and we know Rajneesh, all of us, mostly we know that he is one of the pioneers of the internet space. So we asked him to join us because internet and environment is also important to understand and talk about. Next slides, please. Oh, sorry. I have to press the green one. The green one. Yeah, I am pressing, but.
I'm also here for technical support.
All right. Oh, which one? The bigger one. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Rajneesh is so kind of you. Thank you. So we will start with this presentation, peak presentation. There's no text about certain images, just to reflect on, just to reflect how the subject is important, a few images, and then we'll start the discussions, 2 rounds of discussions with the speakers we have. And then we have at the end, we have a small clip, video clip, 2 minutes of video at the end. And we have certain question answers, and we have small gifts for our speakers and also for 3 gifts for the audience for some questions if you want to respond to those questions. And these products are recycled products that I got from India. Thank you. And so this is can you go to the sorry. So you can see in this slide there are certain images and what it reflects. That first image, of course, you can see the kind of mobile productions that is happening in the global space. In 2022, you can see the kind of mobile phones being produced. And also on the other side, you can see the mobile phone is composed of the minerals and materials that is being used. And of course, in the third slide at the bottom left, you can see the kind of materials and the minerals that is being used for producing a laptop. And of course, And on the last slide, on the right corner down, you can see the kind of mines that is being extracted, the minerals are extracted, and the kind of resources being used in extracting those resources from the ground, the water consumption that is happening. And of course, this work is, of course, APC has done, and we have done jointly together, and this I have taken from the APC resources. And in this slide, you can see the kind of e-waste being produced. And also today morning, I was just checking in Australia in 2019, 511,000 tons of e-waste being generated, which is 20 kg, 20 kilogram per 20 kg per person average. And also in India, it is 2 million tons of e-waste being generated. It was generated in 2022, which is the third largest in the world. And also on the other picture, you can see the kind of digital divide also happening in the world still exists, and digital divides are at various levels. And I think it's up to us to interpret how to interpret, but you can see the kind of divisions that is happening in the world. There's more need increasing. So in that context, if you can see those images, what thoughts are being generated in our minds. One of the kind of demand, the digital devices, the consumptions, and also the waste being generated, the extractions happening, and also the minerals being extracted, and also the environment. What is the impact on the environment, on the natural resources that we have? And so these are all a complex kind of a situations for us. And also like country like India, where, and I think recently India overtaken China as the most populated country. We have India as a context of digital divide, also increasing digital consumptions, one of the highest importer of digital devices, highest, third largest of e-waste producer in the world. So it's a complex situation, you can understand. There's a need, there is a demand, there's also environmental challenges we are facing, every day now and then. So in that context, how do we see the circular economy context in that space, whether this is going to really help us in terms of rising need on the one hand, the environmental concerns, the finite resources that we have, and also the cost of those resources. There's a huge cost, of course, monetary cost is there, environmental cost, social cost, and also pollution cost, and so on and so forth. So this is a diagram that has, of course, come out from the Circular Economy Guide that we jointly produce, many member organizations of Association for Progressive Communications. This diagram we had extracted from there, and this diagram is trying to tell us that right from the source of origin of resources generated, recycling and all, how it takes care of everything. Can it take care of everything? Social angle, environmental angle, human rights angle, and also the need for our continuous need for resources. But at the same time, how do we reduce the waste, maximize the waste reductions, and also that our resources are regenerated within the system for longer duration, and also have a positive impact on the environment. So I stop my slide here. So this is the last slide I wanted to push, just put it here. And so with this, I will start the discussion now. And of course, I come back to the speakers here and to all of you one by one. And I request all the speakers to be, just bring out maximum points you can bring out on those questions that you'll be speaking on, so that we can have your thoughts and also take it forward. So now my first question goes to Tino Noya. Thank you for joining us. For my first question is that so since you represent Tuvalu and the Pacific region, so how the digital environmental whole phenomena, digital environmental sustainability, how do you see that phenomena in the context of Tuvalu, and also the challenges, digital environmental challenges you are facing in your country, and how do you see the role of, and the second part of the question is that how do you see the role of circular economy and the design elements? Do you see any design, not only of the design of the products of the telecommunication or the digital thing, but also the entire programmatic design also in a country like Tuvalu? So over to you, Tinonia.
Thank you so much, Syed. Yeah, it's a very a long question. I'm going to divide it into two parts. So I will talk from the context of Tuvalu and as well some representation from the Pacific. So when it comes to this topic is very, very important to the context of the Pacific, because digital and environmental challenges are paramount importance, and they are deeply interconnected. And Tuvalu, being a small island nation in the Pacific, faces unique vulnerabilities. And I think it reflects in other Pacific Island countries too, because it due to the geographic location, limited resources, and the vulnerability of our small island state for the impact of climate change. So how do digital and environmental challenges intersect, and the critical role of balancing and sustainable? I want to put this in two challenges. So one, I will talk about the digital challenge. Limited connectivity, I will say, in the case of Tuvalu and many neighboring islands experience challenges in accessing reliable and affordable internet connectivity, which sometimes hampers the educational, economic, and social development. And the other one is, we always talk about this topic it's been discussed worldwide, it's digital divide. There's a noticeable gap in digital literacy and access between rural areas and urban areas in the context of Tuvalu as well, and in the Pacific Islands. And this divide pretty much impair inequalities and hinder access to opportunities for our people. When it comes to environmental challenge, rising sea level, obviously, this is a threat of rising sea level due to climate change for our Pacific Island nation, and puts Tuvalu at risk of so many things: coastal erosion, flooding, and even submerge. It's threatening the life of our people, and of course infrastructure. When it comes to cyclone and natural disaster, our region, our Pacific region, is prone to cyclones and extreme changes in weather events. So this all causes widespread damages to the services that we provide, connectivity. I would give an example: the massive volcanic eruption in Tonga, cyclone Pam and Winston in the past couple of years caused a lot of damages in our islands and disrupted essential services. The other most important challenge in terms of environmental challenges is I want to highlight the ocean acidification. Our coral reefs are a vital part of our marine ecosystem and our local economies, and we depend a lot on our ocean, because as locals, as local communities, we depend so much on fish. Fish is a primary source of food for our people. So I wanted to connect this with how it's balancing and sustain in a sense. So what do we do? What are we going to do with this, with the challenges? So we look at balancing and sustainability in the digital context with infrastructure resilience. It's very important. So we need, as Pacific Island countries, we need to invest in robust infrastructure that can withstand environmental challenges, to ensure that connectivity during crisis or disaster is still, maintained. I want to touch base on policy and innovation as well, because I believe that policymakers can really promote the use of environmental friendly technologies in, I think, in our region as well, such as things like solar power, communication towers for our mobile networks. We also have to consider long-term ecological impact, and there's so many. In terms of international collaboration, I think regional collaboration. That
question is a second part. I'll come.
Okay, all right. So the second part of the question is, how do we see this a role of circular economy? Right. I mean, adopting a circular economy approach means designing digital device and infrastructure for things like longevity, repairability, and upgradability, because this can reduce the rapid generation of e-waste. I will give you a good example in the Pacific, specifically for Tuvalu. We don't produce waste that is enough to export for recycling. So what's going to happen? It's a challenge in Tuvalu because this waste will be piled up until we get the minimum requirement that we can put in a container and ship it to, to places where they can do recycling. And you can imagine this waste sitting on our land, polluting our environment as well as our ocean. And this is something, it's a challenge in Tuvalu because we are very small. Looking at the numbers that was presented, it's very, it's quite big, not for small island countries. And we also have to consider sustainable energy consumption. And one of the things that I want to highlight here is the creation of local value, like reuse and repair, like a circular economy. The concept is to promote the repair and refurbishment and reuse of digital devices. I think if we create this in our local market, we can actually contribute to our local job opportunities. We can provide it to our local people. And instead of waiting until we get the minimum requirement that we can export the number of waste. I think just the last part, I think I'm going to wrap it up. In the Pacific region, I think the integration of circular economy principle and design elements can offer more like a holistic approach addressing the digital and environmental challenges. So by designing digital technologies for the things that I've mentioned earlier, longevity, energy efficiency, repairability, and circular resource flows, I think the region can transition towards a sustainable digital ecosystem that will benefit our people, our society, and of course, our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Thenonia. I think very important points. So I will again come back to you with another question. So now I come back to Shawna, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you. So we want to hear from you, since you have been working for years now and we have been working together. So sitting in Canada, of course, the context, because the context that you're sitting in and also the work that we have been doing in multi-country programs. So how do you see, why and how do you see this evolution of this technology concerning for environmental rights and justice? So this evolution of digital technology, how do you see in the context of environmental rights and justice? Part one, and part two is, how do you see the digital circular economy approach, both as an opportunity, but also as a challenge, because it is not easy to transit from a linear processes to a circular process so easily, because it involves so much of things to deal with it. Over to you, Shawna.
Thanks so much, Syed, for those questions, and to DEF for bringing this conversation to the APRIGF. It's such an important conversation, and it was really great for me to listen to some of the experiences from Tuvalu in response to the climate crises. On your first question of the evolution of technology and the concerns for environmental rights and justice, I want to sort of draw the attention to the right to a healthy environment, which has been recognized by the UN General Assembly, by the Human Rights Council, and just a few days ago, the UN Committee on the Rights of Children for the first time affirmed children's rights to live in a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. And I think this is really important for many reasons, including that it links to a large number of human rights that are already enshrined in national law and in various international laws. And I think that the challenge really with technology is that, as we understand with many of the supply chains and the development of technology, the extractivism, the use of mining, the labor involved in the supply chains, there are huge violations that are happening in terms of the right to a healthy environment, the rights of labor, as well as the right to freedom of expression. And I think that, for example, in the recent guidance from the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, there's an important recognition of the procedural rights of environmental rights, including access to information, participation, in decision-making and access to justice. And technology certainly can be something that is supportive for that. And I think that a circular economy approach that really provides more information about the supply chains and provides more frameworks for monitoring circularity, for monitoring repairability, are really important in terms of providing that access to information and also providing support for access to justice. But I think, as you raised already, Syed, I think there are huge challenges from moving from what is currently understood as a linear economy, where planned obsolescence, where repairability is not prioritized. There are huge challenges. And I think as well as the challenges of responding to the need for example, right to repair legislation, for addressing the huge problem of electronic waste, we also need to look at the ways in which circularity needs to include anti-extractive approaches and really needs to look at the impacts of mining and demands for critical minerals in the so-called transition towards digital technologies. And I think that's something that we're going to hear more about in a session after this. But I'll stop there because I really want to hear more from the other speakers. So thanks very much for that, Syed.
Thank you, Shawna. So these are very important points, and I think we have been working on this issues time and again, and we look forward. So thank you. So let me come now to Titishka. So I have a question for you. The question specific to you is that this digital environment, balancing the digital environmental, the two components together, is also a huge behavioral transformation required, because it's a consumer, because ultimately the market, the consumer, the citizens are the largest decision makers. You know, if they decide that they really want to use only recycled products, or repairing goes for more and more repairing and all, certainly it will also impact the decision making of the government or the bodies or the manufacturers, and also like it could really impact on the environment in the mid and long run. So how do you see this whole evolving challenge of balancing the two, but also a social behavioral aspect of engaging the community and the citizens and the youth, especially youth, because they are the biggest consumers of digital and electronics today. So how do you see in this context, this whole education part, transforming part?
Hello. Hi, Syed, and thank you for having me on the panel. Really glad to be here. Just going to put some numbers up to begin with. Some of them we've already heard, but nonetheless, they're important. So the Asia Pacific region, given that's where we are, and that's what's concerning us at the moment, is the most populous region in the world, and it's home to 4.2 billion people today. In 2002, an estimated 73% of youth aged between 15 to 24 years used the internet, according to a report by the UNICEF. And this is in the Asia Pacific region alone. The region also sees that it is high on not fixed broadband, but more moving mobile broadband subscriptions, which are increasing the amount of data consumption per person that happens drastically. And this is also a trend which we've seen exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Another report says that 54% was the average share of products which are partially or fully digitalized, with an adoption acceleration of 10 plus years. So in the years between 2017 to 2021-22, we've seen that 54% of access to services or access to products which were otherwise happening in the offline economy are now happening in the online economy. And a huge part of this chunk of people is actually youth aged between 15 to 24, right? Now, if you look at a global picture, more than 45% of users online are less than 25 years of age. So think about it, with the COVID-19 pandemic, which brought on education and a whole bunch of essential services online, it essentially handed over phones to people who are aged 3 or 4, because that's how they're learning now. They are extremely early adopters and lifelong consumers of technology. So the first time that they are buying devices, these are smartphones, these could be tablets, laptops, and a whole bunch of accessories, which I can't even begin to think about quantifying. The rates at which we go through all the allied stuff which we use to make the best of our technological devices. If someone begins at 3, one can only imagine what kind of consumption rate we are looking at, let's say for a 80 to 90-year-old lifespan. Right now, born into this sort of tech, with this tech ubiquitousness, they've seen technology always as a given around themselves, also means that technology goes unexamined, right? And some of this we discussed yesterday when the issue of trust came up, for example. But it's very important for that unexamined aspect to also be brought about when we are talking about sustainability and the health of the overall planet, right? So when we see young people think of technology as toys, right? It's a space rock which has now landed up, and every year you see new features pop up, right? Which become the way for you to sort of participate in social life, to signal status, to be cool. Excess device usage across a range from phones to laptops, etc. Then an important question that rises, we essentially cannot divorce the digital question from the sustainability question anymore. We can no longer think that, oh, let's look at innovation or development of the economy, which is essentially tech driven, and we can think of the circular economy or the environment as an aftermath. It cannot be thought of in the aftermath anymore, right? So when you ask the question of where does the smartphone come from and where does it go? I think most people would say it comes from the store and it goes back to the store, because that's pretty much our engagement with buying and selling of a phone, right? With some of the work that we did with young students in the region, in India, across Singapore, and we ran pilots with them around some of the open resources which we developed for young people to think about technology and sustainability, specifically focusing on the smartphone, since that is the most ubiquitous device today. We learned that they actually have very little understanding of the kind of planetary cost, one, that it takes to build a smartphone. The smartphone essentially travels thousands of kilometers before it reaches our pockets, right? It travels from almost all across the world, all continents it touches, from mining to manufacturing to assembly, and finally landing up in a store or in an online on the website that you essentially buy it from, right? There was also a lack of understanding of the planned and perceived obsolescence, which is perhaps one of the most important things when it comes to the smartphone. Increasingly, we are seeing smartphone manufacturers produce new models of the same series every year, pretty much, with few feature updates, and the kind of marketing push that we see from these companies also tells us that there is an essential understanding that, oh, you use this phone for about a year, it gets outdated, and then let's go ahead and buy this new one, right? Which has this particular feature that is better. So we essentially know that smartphone manufacturers are planning for the obsolescence of the devices that they are creating. They do not think that and this is a point that you raised as well. So, that is the first part. But the second part, which I think impacts youth, teenagers and young people a lot more, is perceived obsolescence. So if you have been using the same smartphone for, let's say, 3 years, and all of your friends are not, they're updating their phones far more frequently, it becomes a question of social pressure, of fitting in, of being the cool kid who, is up with technology. This essentially means that we need to rethink the narrative and change the conversation around technology itself, and give the larger life cycle picture. The lack of exposure to these digital issues, to the planetary and mineral costs of the smartphone, need to be addressed. A lot of the digital curriculums in the Asia Pacific region, including India, since you pointed out, are sorely lacking in talking about any of these issues. Our curricula are still talking about technology from about 10 to 20 years ago, and do not at all address the digital issues which concern young people today.
Yeah. we'll again come back to second round,
Absolutely.
right?
Thank you.
So I'm stopping you here in terms of the digital curriculum that she talked about, and whether this environmental sustainability component is inbuilt into those courses and curriculum is also important to understand. Thank you so much. So Osama, good morning. If you can hear me. Osama, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so coming to you, of course, you have been in the space for more than 20 years now, traveling across the world, traveling across India, nooks and corners of the country, because India is such a huge country, and also the whole digital ecosystem that you understand better in India. So how do you see this whole complexity of this India's increasing, manifold increasing digital consumption, digital citizens and digital needs and all, but also at the same time, convincing the larger community at large, a society that has been used to a linear process. So how do you see the role of the government or the industry or the civil society in this context of if India has to move towards a circular economy approach? So how do you see this whole gamut of things based on your observations and work that you have been doing?
Thank you. I just want to start by saying that thank you, APRIGF, for creating a platform of importance and listening, and also Rajneesh for being the pillar of that. And sorry, Rajneesh, I couldn't make it. This is a very serious topic that we are discussing, and I think we are still discussing this topic from a very curative manner in terms of that we are looking for curation or cure of the problem. It is very important that we look at this problem from the prevention perspective. Then only it will go a long way. And the reason why I say that is because when we talk about circular economy or circularity of everything, it's very natural. What comes out goes in, what goes in comes out. And that's the basic theory. And therefore, we need to look at why do we have a situation of such a stage of life where we are now thinking of environmental impact of digitalization or digital culture. So we need to go back and see that is digital, where does digital come from and what does it really do? And it actually does is that production of information. So, we are, I mean, not that we never wanted information, but we always wanted information from humans, Now we want all the consumption of information through a device, right? All the consumption of information. That's one issue. The second issue is over a period of decades, we have created a culture of consumerism, culture of consumption, and therefore always making a culture of production for masses and individualization. I need my own house, I need my own car, I need my own device, I need my own everything. So the culture of public usage, the culture of community usage, the culture of community access, culture of community-based access to information is totally gone. We want everything individually in our private hands, in our private area, in our private format, and so on and so forth. And that's what the culture of capitalism and the culture of business actually propagates, that everything has to be made for the individual and very, very powerful, right? So we have the most powerful mobile, which is, which beats the mainframe of the old age, far behind, is given in the hands of just one individual. And therefore, like many other people highlighted, when I am born in a society and community, I am actually surrounded by those individualization of access to information and the consumption, and therefore I grow and try to individualize everything and own everything. So what does it require when you have these kind of problem? I think we need to immediately go back to our education system to see how do we create an education system which create consumption of information as a public approach and not an individual approach. How do we incorporate the meaning of circular economy at a very childhood level? Or how do we incorporate the public usage angle in a very childhood stage, and so on and so forth. So therefore, we go back to the root where we are producing the consumer itself, that who are going to consume these digital goods or any product in life, right? We have to create the consciousness right there while we are doing the recycle, reuse, and repair and refurbish and so on and so forth. All those R's are important. I'm not ignoring that at all. But when we are already hearing that we are taking birth in a situation where the culture of consumerism is so high, and that too about digital, we have to prevent that. We have to create a situation of that. And therefore, we need to have a very strong policy at a government level for each country to how to create a culture of usage in a collectives, in community level, right? Everything cannot be found in an individualization of access to solution and knowledge and wisdom. And that's the point I want to make here on this platform of APR-IGF, is that the approach to circular economy and its understanding has to be divided into two parts, preventive and curative. And we have to also go back and see what kind of human race that we are creating, which is actually pushing more and more consumption of information, which is pushing more production of devices and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Osama. I think two things that is very profound is, of course, the culture of consumerism, digital consumerism, I would rather say, and also, of course, the communitization of usages of technology, how that is also important in this whole circular process. Thank you. So, Rajneesh, so I think you're already thinking what to say, I'm sure, because you got some time to think. So I come to you because Internet Society, promoting Internet connectivity, last mile connectivity and access is very, very crucial also, again, for access to information, resources, opportunities, and a lot of things. So how do you see this role of emerging evolution of Internet, of course, in the last so many decades of evolution of Internet, and also how Internet, do you see Internet also in the context of circular economy, how the essential relationships are so intricately connected, and how do you want to look back and see the way Internet needs to be looked in this way, the whole architecture of Internet, the design, and so on and so forth. So how do you see the role of Internet in this whole circular economic process of balancing the environmental and digital needs? Because everything has to ride on the Internet at the end of the day.
Okay, so just for the record, until about 40 minutes ago, I didn't know I was a speaker in this session. so
that is a beauty of, yeah.
Before I attempt to answer your question, because obviously I haven't heard the question before, now that I have a thought about it, there's something else I want to just very quickly mention. Since we're in Queensland and I grew up in this state, as a young kid growing up, one of the biggest fun times I used to have when we used to go out to the reef, when what I call the reef is what we call the Great Barrier Reef. That reef you see today looks nothing like what I remembered as a kid. Okay, that reef is being devastated. Queensland is also a very large mining destination. I'll let you connect the dots on some of the reasons why that reef is bleaching and dying, but I'll leave it at that. Second thing, very quickly, since we're talking about waste, and since you're in Australia, hopefully for a few more days, do go and see the reef before it maybe goes away. There is a program run by a national broadcaster called War on Waste, which is very eye-opening. They really give you that visual impact of how much waste do we actually create, even just buying a shirt or a t-shirt or the packing that they go in, and of course devices and all that, and food waste as well. So there's many dimensions to this, right? I mean, obviously we're addressing technology here, but if you are in this country for a while, please do, it's available on the streaming platform, so you can have a look at it. It's a good watch. And there are things there that I hadn't realized, which was slightly depressing. Anyway, sorry to sort of diverge away for a while. Look, so in terms of, I think as the internet was developing and evolving, we wanted more and more people to be connected, right? So there was this drive to connect people. Some of you may remember the one laptop per child thing that was run, right? Where let's get a laptop in every child's hand and, and let them innovate and create and do something out of it. When we started the Community Networks program 2009 with Osama and yourself, Syed, in India, our idea was that we give technology in people's hand, that'll empower them, it'll change their way of life, et cetera, et cetera. Now, fast forward to where we are today, I think we've done really, really well. The problem is we've also created a beast, which is the throwaway economy. You talked about phones, others have talked about phones, et cetera, et cetera. But let's also think about why there's a new, well, I suppose I shouldn't take brand names, but why is there a new phone of brand A and B and C every year? Because that's the only way they can drive future revenue and corporate profits. So when Apple stock goes up on the stock market, everyone's happy. If you're an Apple shareholder, you want it to keep going up, right? But the reason it's going up is because it can guarantee future revenue. Therefore, people want to buy more of their stock thinking it will keep on going. So that's also a circular problem, isn't it, right? You're feeding that beast, right? The other thing, so my early career, one of the businesses I set up was doing what's called third-party workshop services. So a lot of the big, well, there used to be big brands, some of them don't exist anymore, like Digital Equipment Corporation, for example, or Fujitsu, which is not as big as it used to be, NEC, et cetera, et cetera. So for a lot of those companies, my company provided them with third-party workshop services. What does that mean? When their equipment broke down, whether in warranty or out of warranty, they didn't have the facilities to fix them. They'd come to one of my centers, and we'd fix those for them and send it back to the customer. Back then, what we call circuit level fixing of gear was easy to do. The manufacturer also gave you a service manual on how to fix it and what all the parts were that would go into it. Today, that doesn't happen. One of the reasons why that doesn't happen, we've gone to such a level of miniaturization. We have multi-layer PCB boards, which you cannot fix in your typical workshop. You need specialized equipment for that. So then what's the solution? Okay, you go to the modular level. We'll just change the card. But that card then gets thrown away. It doesn't get fixed. Very, very few get fixed. In that card, there's a whole bunch of stuff. There may be a battery of some sort, which will leak into the environment. There'll be lead, there'll be mercury, there's gold, there's silver, there's copper, and there's a whole bunch of other heavy metals, right? Yes, we recycle them, but we don't. I have actually seen some of those recycling plants. Those PCBs do not get recycled, right? Not in the way we are led to believe. So this is not just, I think it's actually become a societal problem now. We've created this piece, and you talked about kids wanting new models. It's not just kids, adults as well, right? Everyone's happy to show off their new XX phone or XX pad or whatever it is that they've just bought. And there's that consumerism that's driving this. So I think we also have to acknowledge it's consumerism that is also driving this problem. It's not just the big companies wanting to make profits. They do that because we as consumers are buying this stuff. And because I practice what I preach, my phone is 6 years old. I have not changed my phone for 6 years. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Rajneesh. So I think I also compliment you. Mine is 6 years old almost. So I am getting a pressure to change it, but I'm still managing it. So I'll continue to manage as much as I can. Thank you. So this first round is over. And since we don't have much time, so I'll come quickly. We have another 9 minutes. Yeah. So I just quickly, any last comments that you see this very important to take it forward, from all of you, I am coming. So Tenonia, so what is the last point that you want to see very important taking forward, take it from here, that what is very important for you?
Yeah,
Quickly.
thank you. I think I have so many things in my mind that I want to share, but because of time, but I will focus on one thing, very important: collaboration and innovation in the context of industry collaboration, since everybody's talking about, how we're going to come up with a encourage the collaboration of manufacturers, recyclers, and policymakers, how they can come together to create something like a closed loop system for resource management. I think that is very important, and also very important for innovative solutions. Circular design thinking, I think we should encourage that, because that exploration of innovative business models, such as, leasing a product or products as a service, I think this can extend the product life cycle, so people can keep on using, the same product over and over again. I think that's the.
Thank you. Thank you. Very important. I think closed loop of stakeholders are important in the design part. Thank you so much. Shawna, the very important point that you think at this point of time that you want to leave with us.
Thanks so much, Syed. Really just building on what's been said, I think spaces like this, like the APR IGF and multi-stakeholder conversations and exchanges are so important for really developing a shared understanding of the challenges and developing frameworks towards the future of digital technology that can be environmentally sustainable and really uphold the right to a healthy environment. And so just a huge appreciation for the Asia Pacific Regional IGF and for having these multi-stakeholder conversations around these really complex and important issues. Thanks, Syed.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. So you talked about future digital framework and that engagement is required in platforms like APR IGF and other platforms. Thank you. Tritishka, the last point that you think is very important now, just to take it.
So two quick things I want to say. One is, I think we definitely need action at the policy level. A lot of the informal economy, which is the repairing, the refurbishing economy, needs support. It needs more rules. It needs ways in which criteria around environment and sustainability, as well as social well-being, are taken care of, because now, as other panelists have also pointed out, the social and social, digital, as well as the economic aspects all sort of intertwine in a very complex sort of way. The right to repair, for example, was something that India very recently enacted into law, and I think that's a good step forward. The second, coming back to the main point, is I think we need change at the educational level, not just within schools, but also in general, doing campaigns, engaging citizens and public, making them aware of the kind of planetary costs involved with technology is essentially important. And one last thought, and I don't know if people will agree with me or not, a lot of the countries in the Asia Pacific region actually have a sense and value of circularity existing already. It's not new. We are not looking for answers coming from consumerism. Consumerism is something we are trying to, tackle and grapple with. So I believe we also need to look at more non-Western approaches to thinking about technology itself, right? A lot of us have seen circularity at home, right? And why not bring that back into ways which inform our use of technology?
Thank you. Thank you. I think, traditional knowledge practices are still already there. We have a culture of reusing and recycling and all. So probably that needs to be brought to the forefront in the digital space also. Thank you so much. Osama, so the last thought that you think you should share before you go to the bed again?
No time to go to bed again. It's all bright and sunny now. I just want to, I have said what I had to say, but I would just like to connect that we need to go back to remember our Gandhi's word, always go for the product made by the masses rather than for the masses. Right? The whole consumerism is coming from the fact that we are always looking for the product which is made for the masses, not by the masses. As soon as you look for the product by the masses, you will always concentrate on community, collectives, and those people who you trust rather than artificial materialistic things. So with those notes, I would like to say that let's think from the perspective of community and collective rather than the consumer individualization.
Thank you, Osama. That I think collectivization is again, I think very, very critical in the space of circularity, bringing it back to our ecosystem. Thank you so much. So Rajneesh, so the last thought that you have
Look, I think I said enough, and I gave
Yeah.
you some interesting experiences that I've had. So I will just say, if you want to see all this change and protect the environment, charity begins at home. You can start the change, like I have, and many others in this room have.
I think that's quite profound. I think it has to start from home, start from ourselves, start from each individual of us. How do we think? It's all the thinking at the end of the day is in the mind. How do you look at things? And of course, taking care of environment is not only the job of some people or some organizations. So all of us, our collective responsibility. So thank you all the speakers. And I think we have 3 minutes. And so I think the message is very clear. And this discussion of circularity, I think it has to be in every space, every office space, or at home, in the governance spaces, colleges, institutions, everywhere. I think if this is taken forward, I think that whole culture of change could happen, and I think really impact on impact all our lives and all our important things that we need to take care of the environment. And I think there's no fixed time to start. It can be started immediately at any level that we are in. So I think I come back to the audience. As I said, if you have any questions, any thought to share, please share with us. Yes, Michael, thank you. Yeah, let me help you. No problem. You can have 2 mics. So at the back also.
Hi, so first of all, hi to 3 old friends, Raj, Osama, and Syed, yourself as well, Syed. I just want to carry on what was said about the culture of recycling in India. Because if we think of practical solutions, one of the amazing things about India is that pretty much everything is actually recycled or reused. And what I would encourage us to think is about how we harness the existing systems for really effective recycling. Labor is cheap. It's already a system that exists. There is a chain that exists. You just need to harness it. And there lies really, really interesting opportunities.
I think absolutely correct, Michael. I think everything is available, but we need to just look at it and look back and see what we can extensively use to change the processes and bring about a transformation. And I think on the last note, government of India, in India, there was a draft policy on circular economy and electronic and electrical waste, which we extensively participated in many organizations. So we are yet to hear from the government that what is the final document, policy document that is going to come. And we are excited and looking forward that what essentially it will bring us in terms of promoting and pushing for this digital circularity in India. And I think India is really sitting on a very big challenge of, I think, as I told you, 3rd largest e-waste producer in the world. And also it's increasing. So I think, so that is a big challenge. So we don't have time. So thank you so much. You have one question quickly. Any thought?
Thank you. This is Robert from Vanuatu Regulator. We seem to be talking about mobile phones and laptops, but we tend to forget that before that we had TVs and radios and fridges. And those are sitting back like in the islands, old, and we know they have lead and stuff in them, can affect the environment. So just pointing out that part.
So I think that was an observation, if I'm correct. So thank you for that observation. It was not a question, right?
There is one online.
Okay, quick. We don't have time. Sorry for that. I think already all zeros are in front of me. 6 zeros are in front of me. So I think the managers are there sitting here. I think I'm sorry for that. I think we don't have time, any more time. I think we have to take a break and go for the next session, I think. Thank you so much, all of you. And I think this discussion has to continue every platform, any forums. And I think as we are committed, we'll take it forward. Thank you so much. So I have small gifts for the speaker.